All right, welcome back to the House Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. And on this lovely Thursday morning, we are picking up our work on a couple of charter bills. We're starting with H504, which is an act relating to the approval of the amendments to the Charter of the Town of Berlin. And we have the Berlin Town Administrator here to answer a couple of the questions that we had from the other day. So Mr. Conti, welcome. Would you introduce yourself for the record?
Sure. Vince Conti, the Town Administrator for Berlin.
Great. Thanks for being here. And I think we had a couple of questions on H504. Representative Higley, did you want to?
Sure. So I guess the first couple of questions are in regarding to the personal property and inventory tax. It has a figure for both as $1,650. If you're talking about personal property at $1,650, that's not very much. And if you're talking about the tax on the inventory, that's based, if it was $1.65, it would be based on $100,000 with the inventory. So I guess clarification as to what you actually were looking for in both those?
Sure. So in summary, it's really, it is $1,650 and on the property tax for the business, and it's equivalent to basically $10 or less in tax amount. And for the treasurer, it costs us more administratively to manage that small amount than to have the authority for her through the select board to waive that amount. So that's all we're looking for, is the ability to waive anything $1,650 or less, which equates to $10 or less in an actual tax amount.
And so again, that's on the personal property piece, right?
Correct.
Okay, but again, so talking about the inventory, if the inventory is equal to or less of 1,650, is that same thing, not the taxed amount, but the actual inventory amount?
Correct.
Okay, because inventory tax, when the total assessed value of personal property and inventory is equal to less. Okay, I don't know if there needs to be some wording changes there, but.
It doesn't, yeah. Sure.
Or inventory tax.
So the question we have about the actual words on the page is that it seems to imply both that the threshold is the amount and the tax pegged to the 1,650. And from what I'm understanding, what you really wanted it to be is the assessed value
Correct.
of the property and not the tax amount, because you're thinking the de minimis tax amount is really $10.
Okay. That's correct.
Representative Hanga.
In the very beginning, the statement of purpose of the bill, it does say on line 13, or inventory tax when the total of the assessed value of the personal property or inventory is equal to or less than 1,650. So I think it's stated clearly in the purpose, but maybe not in the wording, and I can't, I'm trying to locate it in the actual bill.
It's on page 3,
14.
line C, 14.
Yep, when the totals.
So,
Or inventory. Oh, that's why. I think it's in the actual bill under subsection 73, line 15, letter C, when the total assessed value of personal property or inventory taxation is equal to or less than 1,650. I think if you took the word taxation out of that sentence, it would say when the total assessed value of personal property or inventory is equal to or less than 1,650.
I agree.
Certainly.
If you took the word taxation out.
Happy to do that if it clarifies it for better understanding. Absolutely.
I'm seeing nods from Tucker that would resolve the one piece of confusion. Should we, Tucker, would it be good for us to maybe just come back to this right after the floor? Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Conti? It sounds like we have a clear path to getting this out once we get that word taxation out. We always like to remove taxation.
Yeah, look at us.
Get rid of taxes.
Absolutely.
We had a little evacuation. We all went outside, got some sun, and now we're all punchy and just taking words out of bills. Mr. Conti, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. Glad to be here.
I think what we'll do is just see a draft with that one word removed after we're on the floor a little bit later today. Representative Chase, did you have a question?
just a process thing, there is a precedent for committees voting on a bill as, when amended as requested. So if we wanted to do this now, there is precedent for doing that.
So there is. What I will say is that I have made a commitment to try to make sure that we've actually got words on a page, and that is falling into the bucket of maybe we were doing it by precedent in the past in a lot of committees, but it's not really the way we should be doing things. And the clerk has really tried, given the number of new chairs and new people in the body this year, to get us back to following Mason's manual and our house rules to the letter as much as possible. So I'm in this instance going to say we should come back and do it the right way. I think we can. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the suggestion for expediency, though, Representative Chase. Thank you, Representative Donahue and Gosselin. All right. So one more step in the path on the Berlin Charter. So next up, we've got 505, the amendment to the Charter of the City of Rutland. So Tucker, would you like to take the chair and we'll take a breeze through those words on the page one more time before we... if we have any questions before we move that one.
Right, in H505, City of Rutland's proposing a local option tax. It is strictly for sales. They did not include meals and alcoholic beverages or rooms. They are going to administer and collect this according to the general law. So really, this is just special approval for them to use the general law and apply a local option tax. They have one charter-specific provision, which is in subsection E that we went through the other day, that restricts the uses of the local option tax revenue that they receive to deposit in any capital investment reserve fund, to reduce the deficit in any underfunded pension, or to finance the construction, reconstruction, or repair of city infrastructure, buildings, streets, sidewalks. That subdivision D4 had that strange wording in it. I went back to what was written on the ballot, and the reason that I wrote it this way and preserved that term ways is that the ballot said any combination of the subdivisions and then listed the subdivisions, but it wasn't a clear written logical structure about how that would be interpreted. So I wrote this in this slightly more legalistic way to resolve legal ambiguity, and it's a little confusing. So if you did want to clean up that subdivision D4, one of the ways that you could do that is using an any or structure. So it would say that they shall be used in any of the following ways, and then list 1, 2, 3, but have a conjunction or, and any followed by an or conjunction means any of the following or any combination of the following. And then you don't even need that subdivision for, you just get it right out of there.
Representative Hanko.
Thank you. I like that. I think that is clear. This letter, number 4, just didn't really sounded,
Ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And would you say also, Tucker, in letter D, would you also say to be used in any combination of the following ways?
Yes.
Thank you. I didn't know if we talked about this already. Assuming that they intended for the sales tax to just apply to those things too, or is it worth clarifying with them that that's what they intended?
Can you clarify part of the question?
Are we assuming that they intended to only apply the sales tax to things that are not meals and beverages? Or is it worth clarifying?
It's very clear, I think, because the communities make a very specific choice because there are these 3 distinct taxes that can be the extra 1%. And I would be very surprised if from the testimony we heard from the reps and just knowing how this has worked in my community, if they had any intention of doing anything other than the sales, they would have definitely done it because it has a huge revenue. The difference in revenue is really different. You know, I would be very surprised if that was just an oversight.
I can tell you from an interpretive standpoint that based on recent charters, this would be likely just restricted to sales. It would not apply to rooms or alcoholic beverages or meals because there have been so many communities that have made one choice over the other. Recently, I believe it was the town of Elmore did only rooms. So.
Thank you.
Does that satisfy your?
I figured I wanted to ask them.
Yeah, it would be very unusual for them to have been like, we meant for it to actually be all these things. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
It would
they knew what they were
definitely
doing.
cite meals and rooms if they were going after
think
like,
so.
the aspect of like dining revenue, yes.
So committee, is it the preference that we accept Tucker's suggestion of cleaning up the ways language? So do we want to, we'll come back to both of these right after 4. Well, so Tucker, I think you got a little bit of homework, but it shouldn't be too painful. Great. Well, any other questions or thoughts about these charters before we break? Well, thank you, committee. Enjoy lunch. We'll see you up on the floor and we'll return here a few minutes after 4 and get these couple of amendments